Hello everyone, and welcome back to the long-awaited part 4 of the Backrooms Creatures Explained series. You guys have all been asking for this series to come back, so I decided to go ahead and bring it back for this video, and I think I will be continuing the series if you enjoy it still. So let me know down in the comments if you still want to see these Backrooms Creatures videos, and I will keep pumping them out for you. Thank you for all of your support, guys. I really appreciate it. We just hit 7K right after my 5K special, so thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. First up for the video, we have a creature called a combine or a combine. These are creatures made up of different parts of other things, and specifically human parts. Thus the name combine, because you combine thing, whatever. They kind of look like a flesh-colored centipede, which is nasty as it is, and they've got human hair running down their back. Their legs are double jointed and can contort in weird ways, and they kind of resemble the shape of human fingers, except at the very end of them, they're these chitin or chitin. If you played Ark Survival, you know what I'm talking about. Tips. These tips work as like photoreceptors, kind of like a nose, so they use them to sniff out their surroundings. Combines don't actually have a designated head per se, they're kind of just one whole thing. These little finger legs can actually expand into an extra digestive pouch, so ew. These creatures can also detach specific segments of themselves if one part gets too damaged, kind of like a lizard with its tail. These centipedes typically live in areas with low classifications like Class 0 or Class 1, and they don't normally attack other creatures or wanderers for the most part. They're just scavengers that eat mold or rotten food that's been left behind, and they drink from random almond water puddles. They have been recorded on several occasions though, attacking sleeping wanderers, so just don't sleep where you're an easy target. I'm pretty sure that's a given in the Backrooms. If a combine senses danger or is actually under attack, they will detach up to 6 legs from its main body, and they'll start wriggling around in a sort of distraction way. Nice. And if the entire thing is actually sustaining heavy damage, the body will split itself into 3 different parts. 2 of those parts will become normal, healthy combines, and the third part will just be that injured part, and it will probably die. The closest thing in real life that a combine is compared to would be a mollusk, like a snail or a clam, because the entire body of this thing operates under some sort of like superficial connection between different mollusk-like creatures, and not one big creature. So the legs and the sections of the body are actually different creatures that make up the one thing. It's not just one big centipede, it's like 10 different mollusks that come together. Just like real life snails, they bleed blue blood, but one thing that separates them from real life mollusks is that these creatures have skeletal structures. Also, they breed by sprouting newborns through their legs. Okay. Some colonies have actually tamed these creatures as a sort of dog replacement, which I thought that was pretty funny. Nothing like a giant centipede with human hair and fingers. The next entity is called the Keymaster. This entity is a paranormal type being that takes on the appearance of a normal human, sort of. He wears a Victorian era leather coat, and his collar is really tall and it obscures the bottom half of his face. So the visible part of his face is very pale, and his eyes are a greenish color. The most notable feature about the Keymaster though is, well, his keys. He wears this huge ring of keys on his hip, kind of like those big rings of keys that janitors wear, and that's pretty much all that's known about the Keymaster. He's a mysterious guy. I kind of like it. A black mist covers a few inches above the ground behind him when he walks, so he could be floating, but no one can tell because you can't see his feet. The Keymaster is actually pretty antisocial, and he kind of just floats around in a confused state, but when he does interact with wanderers, he's pretty neutral. He's not aggressive, and if you kindly approach him and ask him for a key, he'll be willing to give you one, but only one. That's his rule. He doesn't believe in do-overs or second chances. And he says, quote, he isn't liable for any unwanted outcomes. Nice. Also, if you try to attack him, he'll fight back without a second thought, so just don't do that. Also, don't try to ask him any personal questions because he'll just dance around them and not actually answer them. When the Keymaster walks through the Backrooms, the entities that he encounters seem to revere him in a way. They look really intimidated just by his presence, so that's kind of cool. Even though the Keymaster sort of looks like a human, he really isn't. He can't actually be harmed at all. He can also phase through matter and no clip at will, through the floor or ceiling walls, seemingly with ease. Also, he can teleport within a 100-foot radius, so that's pretty cool. In fact, the Wikidot says he's a master at teleporting, which is so dope. The keys on his hip are actually level keys, but he can't control which key he gets. So he has the power to just randomly generate keys, but he can't choose which key he generates. It just seems to be random at every time. And no one knows how he does this regeneration of keys. Some think it's some sort of nanotech technology, and some people think it's some sort of molecular manipulation. Sometimes he can generate things that aren't even keys, and these things can be anything from entities to objects. That's why he's considered dangerous, since he's unpredictable. So he's a dude who can go anywhere, teleport, manifest level keys and other entities, and floats around with a black mist following him. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of theories on who the Keymaster actually is, and some people think he was a wanderer at some point that got transformed into this Keymaster entity. Some people think he was an experiment that just escaped from a more powerful being. This theory kind of makes sense because he can't generate what he wants, it's just random, and that would lead to the logical explanation of him still being an experiment and not a full-on master of level keys. Some people also believe that his power comes from the cloak he wears, and not from himself, and when he dies, the coat just finds another host. That's kinda lame though. And the final theory is that he's just a force of nature that's always existed, and he can transcend the backrooms and all natural law. I think that's my favorite theory. This dude was super dope though. Next up is a really cool entity called Not Water, and it's definitely not water. The entity is a sentient and self-aware liquid that has a vast knowledge of the backrooms. It takes on the appearance of basic water until it's actually consumed, and then whoever drinks it will start to hear random voices in their head and be filled with these random emotional outbursts at the same time. The main theory is that the water has the entity's consciousness in it, as well as the other people who have consumed the water's consciousness. So this somehow connects you mentally to everyone who's had it, and the entity itself. These connections aren't necessarily dangerous, but they can obviously lead to overwhelming emotions and some psychological damage, so just play it safe and don't drink it. There was actually an experiment done by Meg where someone drank the water and then the water was moved, and the person who drank the water could describe exactly where the water was moved to in immense detail, so that's pretty cool. The entity itself is actually pretty neutral though, like you could swim in it and you could drink the water and it won't actually hurt you. If you do end up drinking it, the entity will start to communicate with you and it will share its knowledge of the backrooms and its knowledge of the other hosts. It can also fully control your mind if it wanted to, but it doesn't seem to show any interest in doing this, so that's good, but it's best to just avoid the water unless you're sure it's almond water, because even though the entity doesn't want to hurt you, it still can, so it's just best to play it safe. Nice. Next is a group of creatures called the Bone Thieves. These are huge potato blob shaped creatures with a thick bumpy yellow skin that's impervious to all weapons. Nice. These blob-like creatures are completely stationary for the most part, and they lure victims to them by mimicking sounds of humans or other entities. If you do get near them, well, they'll literally just make you boneless, like instantly. The leading theory about how they can mimic things so well is that they have an extremely developed larynx and a temporal lobe, meaning that they remember what things sound like and they can instantly and exactly replicate those sounds. But it's completely unknown how you become boneless in the presence of a bone thief. And it's also unknown what happens to your bones. But whatever happens, it occurs really quick and really clean. It's totally not creepy at all. The good news is their ability to steal your bones can only be done one at a time. So if you're in a big group of people, he can't just instantly do all those people. He has to do one at a time. Their mouths open extremely wide to reveal eyes inside their mouth. What? They have the eyes inside the mouth? And there are 2 holes on the side of its head where normal eyes would be. These holes emit some kind of bluish liquid that goes all over their body to keep it moist. Their mouths actually don't have teeth or gums, just a void with 2 white eyes. Nice. When the thief debones whatever prey it's going after, it will extend its neck and slurp up the carcass. After they do this, they'll close their mouths and they won't eat again for a week. The leading theory for what happens to your bones when they disappear is that they're either teleported to a different dimension or they're teleported to a different level. Literally, you'll just be standing there and go limp because your bones will be gone. And the outside of your body won't even show any indication of injury. You'll just fall down and it won't be able to move. That's terrifying. If you see a bone thief, just don't get in its line of sight, and make sure you don't approach any noises that seem to be repeating themselves over and over again. As long as you take these precautions, you should still be able to keep your bones. Nice. The next creature is a species of plants called the Snatcher Weeds. These are dark red weeds that are found where plants grow in the backrooms. They grow in these really tight clumps and they only fully extend themselves when they're about to attack. And when they do fully extend themselves, they can reach anywhere from 5 to 7 feet. Which is terrifying. This makes it literally impossible to completely dodge an attack. You can only move slightly, you won't be able to get out of the way fast enough. The weeds themselves have been described as extremely sticky, and they kind of smell like they're burning. In some rare cases, they can even emit a toxin that causes similar effects to those of liquid pain, so that's nice. These weeds are also extremely sharp, kind of like a blade. Coupling this sharpness with their ability to extend 7 feet for an attack, and their ability to emit a liquid pain toxin, you've got yourself a really dangerous plant on your hands. When a Snatcher Weed does attack, the victim can suffer anything from small cuts to total dismemberment. The stems on these weeds have thorns that vary in size from small to large, and if you cut a Snatcher Weed from its stem, you can actually use the weeds as a sword because they immediately come hard and stiff when you cut them off. It's pretty cool. These weeds only grow on levels that are above 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and they can't seem to be grown like a normal plant. Like you can't just pick up a seed and plant it somewhere else and expect it to grow. Although an entity called the Cultivator has had the ability to grow Snatcher Weeds using a vial of his own tears as fertilizer. Okay. The only success that Megas had in growing these weeds was when they planted them and then sprinkled the dirt above them with liquid paint. Snatcher Weeds will also do anything they can to hurt you when they sense you near, so just don't even approach them. It's pretty simple. A wholesome fact is that the Snatcher Weeds don't even seem to attack children, so if you're a kid, you're good. So these things are red weeds with spikes that can emit a toxin that can induce side effects like liquid pain, and they can cut you, strangle you, and they can be used as a sword if you cut them down right. That sounds pretty dope to me. Next up is the Skin Givers, which do exactly what their name says. Basically, they're the opposite of Skin Stealers because they have an ability to cause extra and excess layers of skin to grow on anything they touch. This skin will continue to grow uncontrollably until it fully wraps around you, causing you to be extremely itchy and hot. After a Skin Giver touches you, they'll slowly follow you and wait for you to pass out from the exhaustion that the skin will cause. When you do pass out, the Skin Stealer will tear through all that excess skin and it'll feast on you. Okay. The good news is you can pour almond water on the area that was initially touched and then scratch the skin off and it will go away. If this is done properly, it will stop spreading and you'll be fine. After you run away, of course. Skin Givers have a dark red color to their skin and they have these deep set white eyes. They have skeleton arms and the only skin on their arms are on their hands, and that's where it's excess skin, like layers and layers of skin come from their hands. They move extremely slow, which is good because the weight of the skin on their hands actually weighs them down. If you encounter a Skin Giver, just avoid any physical contact with them and you should be fine, or you can do the almond water trick if you do get touched. That's really creepy though. Being encased by a constantly growing skin cocoon, like, that's creepy. Next up is a creature called an Imposter, aka Entity XXX. These are shape-shifting entities that have infiltrated communities and outposts all over the Backrooms recently. Yeah, this is a really recent one. Specifically, they've been invading the Meg outposts on level 1 and level 11. The true form of an imposter is not fully known, since even when they die, they keep the appearance of whoever they were imitating. Most of the time though, they do form themselves into humans, but there have been some rare cases where they've tried to form into entities as well. They behave very, very similarly to humans, and they're really hard to identify, but the only way you can catch an imposter is by noticing that there's no odor coming off of this human. That's the only telltale sign, if there's no good or bad odor coming off of them. And also, people have claimed that there was this uneasy feeling they got next to him, like this gut feeling that they knew this thing wasn't real or something wasn't right. So if you couple that with no odor coming off of them, you've probably got an imposter on your hands. The agenda of these imposters is not known as of yet, so there's no way to tell if they have bad intentions, but I think they do. Like, why else would they be imitating humans and infiltrating Meg bases, you know? It's like, what? The first known encounter with an imposter was when a random wanderer named Harold Lando was trying to join a Meg base. He was spotted changing form inside of a bathroom, and then he proceeded to flee the scene. He ran to level 9.1, where he was killed by an entity. After this, there have been multiple similar occurrences on this level, level 1, and then level 11. That's creepy though. You wouldn't even know who to trust, dude. Like, that's actually terrifying. And last for today's video is a pretty weird and unique one. They're called Constructors, and that was the name that they gave themselves when they introduced themselves, or when they randomly appeared on level 11 without warning. They disappeared 3 days after they appeared and they have not been seen since. They were 3 small humanoids that were around 3 feet tall, and they kind of resembled a gnome. Their skin felt like a stone material, and all 3 of them dressed in different suits, and 2 of them were wearing golden hats. None of them talked much about their origins or where they came from, but they claimed to be representatives of the Vermont McPlain and Sons Construction Company, which they said was a subsidiary of the Backrooms Remodeling Company, but this isn't confirmed because no existence of Vermont McPlain and Sons Construction Company has been found to exist. They even handed out business cards to people on level 11, but these cards were completely blank except the company name was scribbled in a black ink. And they actually apologized for the quality of these cards, and they claimed that their printers were broken. Okay. When they were asked about why they came to level 11 specifically, they said they were here to hand out consumer satisfaction surveys. What? And they ended up giving these surveys to a ton of people. They identified themselves as Dakota, Rodham, and Quebec when they did interviews, and they claimed they were here to hand out those surveys for their company. Nice. Like, that's all they gave. That's all the info they gave to people. Okay, so 3 gnomes appear out of nowhere with suits and golden hats, and they claim to work for a construction company that doesn't even exist. Good stuff. And then they disappear. And that is it for this Backrooms Creatures Explained video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for 7K. We're growing so quickly, I can't even believe it. We'll be at 10K soon, and leave your comments down below and suggest what I should do for a 10K special, because I'll do whatever you guys want. This is crazy, I mean literally. So thank you for watching, thank you for all of your support, and I will see you later.